Coming right up, a special edition of Straight Talk, a conversation with the chief, featuring Chief of Police Jim McDonnell, Long Beach Police Department.
Opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Charter Communications nor its sponsors. We recognize our obligation to present opposing points of view by responsible spokespersons. For information, please contact the director of program.
She stands in the face of evil and will not lose hope or faith. America, the land of freedom, is still the home of the brave. So raise the banner, call Old Glory. Let us join our fellow man. History will write the story. America will always stand.
Straight Talk is brought to you in part by Southern California Edison. For over 100 years, life powered by Edison. The Press Telegram, your local news leader for over 100 years. And Long Beach Magazine. Coastal Living, City Style.
Join us for tonight's edition of Straight Talk. And now your host, Art Levine.
Good evening and welcome to Straight Talk. We're delighted to have as our guest for the entire show this evening the new Chief of Police of the City of Long Beach, Jim McDonnell. Chief, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, Art.
Welcome to Long Beach,
Thank
and
you.
we all wish you well as you embark on your important responsibilities.
Thank you very much.
As many of our viewers may know, Chief McDonnell had been with the LA Police Department for 29 years, served 7 years under the former Chief Bratton up there, and is a resident of Long Beach for the last 14 years with 2 daughters and your wife. Yeah. So you're part of this community, and we're delighted that officially your responsibilities bring you to Long Beach now.
Thank you.
It's no secret that Long Beach is going through difficult budgetary times, and in this first segment, Chief, I'd like to discuss with you budget and staffing. And let me start with this question, and forget about Long Beach, but would you accept as a general proposition that more police officers, more boots on the street generally mean greater safety for a city or a community?
I think if they're well managed and well led, then more police officers can get you a tremendous return on investment for the money that's spent. In trying to nail down what's the proper number, I don't know that you could get agreement on that anywhere across the country. So that's something that we continue to explore.
Now, I understand that LA staffing is about 2.5 per thousand.
Right.
And Long Beach is about 1.8, 1.9. So there is a differential there. Can you give us any sense of whether there are accepted ratios for best practices in police staffing?
You know, that goes, if you look at New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, they're at about 4.5 per thousand. The West Coast, Southern California in particular, police departments are much, much leaner. There's a different style of policing done on the West Coast, a much more proactive, progressive, assertive style of policing as a result of having fewer officers out there. Much more mobile. You see fewer footbeats on the West Coast than you do on the East Coast. You have less officers, so you have to be much more creative, I think, in how you deploy them, and oftentimes to be able to get them quickly across great distances. You mentioned LA. LA is 467 square miles. So when you look at 2.5 officers per thousand, you got to take into account the distances they have to go as well.
You would think that with greater geographic distances like LA versus New York, there would be a higher ratio than New York rather than a lower.
You would. It's a different philosophy, though, for deployment. New York puts officers out on the street, and you'll see 4 or 5 officers standing around on a corner in Times Square. You will rarely see that out west, and that the idea being back there that 4 officers on a corner provides a deterrent effect. We just don't have the luxury of being able to take that approach. So what we do is we try and police, I think, more intelligently. We try and be much more strategic in our deployment of our officers, and we try and study in doing crime analysis, trying to figure out where the crimes are going to occur based on past data to be able to put people in the right spots on the right times of day and days a week.
As you know, I grew up in New York, and I remember seeing, particularly when visiting dignitaries from foreign countries would come to the UN, literally hundreds of police officers within a couple of blocks, and there seemed to be almost an endless supply.
Yeah.
But is there some reason why funding is stronger back east other than tradition? Where do they get the money for all these police officers?
Well, it's taxes. I mean, you look at what services are provided in one city compared to another. I think if you look at Long Beach, there's been, for a long time, there's been an emphasis on public safety. It's the biggest part of the general fund budget. But you also want to balance that with the libraries, the park and recs and marine, and being able to provide people with recreation, with alternatives to after school hours, to hanging on the street. So I think from the city perspective, you try first, job one has to be public safety, but beyond that, you can't cut everything else out either. You have to be able to provide a kind of a well-balanced approach to providing what you need for the community. And
I know that technology plays a role in effective policing, and you plan to utilize the latest technology in your responsibilities.
Yeah, I think much more so there's than in the past. There's opportunities to be able to use technology that has gotten decreasingly costly, that we can use closed circuit TV, we can use automated license plate readers, we can use a lot of the technology that's come from the military to be able to help do our job in a more efficient manner, to be a force multiplier for us. So there's exciting times ahead, and I think in this city there's a willingness to explore what's out there, to be able to deploy it here, to be able to get that much more bang for the buck.
And for example, cameras covering public spaces are constitutional and are, I think, a good deterrent.
Absolutely. I think that you have no reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place, and I think that people knowing that the cameras that are out there for their safety, most people don't have an issue with that. It's been tested across the country. London is probably the model within the world. Within the United States, Chicago would probably be the model for the effective use of cameras in the public space areas to be able to enhance public safety.
And I know that you just stated that it's not just a police department responsibility, but it's an entire community responsibility to suppress crime.
Right.
And you look to partners within the community and after-school programs and other things to act as a deterrent and a preventative mechanism.
Yeah, you know, I think that when you look at the challenges that kids growing up in any major urban environment face today, they get out, there's a lot of pressure on them, and it's fed by the media, what the expectations of kids are. And when you look at when a kid gets out of school at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they have, you know, several hours until 8 or 9 o'clock at night when they're going into the house. If we can provide an alternative to kids to just hanging on the street, being under the influence of the gangs that are in many of our neighborhoods, I think that we shape the future of Long Beach, we shape the future of America by working with the schools, working with the libraries, working with rec and parks and marine, and being able to give alternatives to kids in a safe environment so they have something productive to do in that period of time. Kids are looking for something that's entertaining, that's fun, that's challenging, and if we don't give them that, they'll find something that to them is entertaining or challenging, and that may not be where we want them to go. So to the degree that we can shape that, I think we have a duty to do that.
And we'll be talking about that in the next segment, and specifically gangs, when we continue our conversation with the chief.
In today's world, everything's connected. From the workplaces that support us, to the homes that welcome us, to the trees and wildlife habitats that remind us how important our environment is. When a bird lands on a branch, and in the midst of a busy day, we stop to watch, it makes us realize we're all in the same boat. The Port of Long Beach welcomes this world with open arms, an environmental policy that's second to none, and a commitment to shaping a vibrant community. The Port of Long Beach, thinking outside the docks.